Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and today I'm going to be doing another book review. Since it's Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, I thought it would be a good idea to cover one of my favorite books that is a part of that, that covers the LGBTQ experience. And the book that I decided to cover today is James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room, which is probably my favorite LGBTQ novel. Now, admittedly, I don't own a copy, so I just pulled an image up on my phone, so that's what you're seeing right there. So yeah, James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. Admittedly, I haven't read a lot of LGBTQ books, not because, like, they don't interest me, I just haven't read a lot of them. Now, I have read, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, which I've already covered on this channel. I'll give a look. But if any of y'all have recommendations about LGBTQ novels I could read in the future, let me know down in the comment section below. But yeah, today I'm covering Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Giovanni's Room, I think, is an amazing novel. But at the same time, I think it was a novel that was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. I mean, James Baldwin had massive balls to put this book out in the time that he did, because when he put it out, it was in a time where homosexuality was not accepted as it is now. It was definitely looked down upon, and James Baldwin, aside from putting out his content about civil rights, he decided he was going to talk about the LGBTQ experience, and he has never done it better, in my opinion, than he did in Giovanni's Room. Now, admittedly, I have only read Giovanni's Room from James Baldwin, which is very sad because I want to read more from James Baldwin, because this book is terrific. I think that Giovanni's Room is one of the best novels I have ever read about the LGBTQ experience, to the point where I don't know if there is any other ones that will be able to top it. I really enjoyed this novel because it's very well written, and the characterization is very strong. But I'll get into more specifics on what I mean. To talk about the prose real quick, this is one of those novels, because I tend to have a weird opinion on prose. Not that I don't like it or anything. I think prose is a very important part of what makes a book work. It can make or break a book, is what I think. But at the same time, I don't always put the biggest emphasis on prose, unless it really grabs my attention. Well, I must say that Baldwin's prose really grabs my attention. It is sensual, it is erudite, it is very smooth. There's not a sentence in the book that really feels like it's out of place, or it feels wonky, or it just feels badly written. It is smooth. It's like butter. I love the prose in this book, and it moves and courses through you like the best of literature. I was even reminded of Lolita when reading this, though this book is not nearly as twisted as Lolita is. But it is definitely as strong, and it is definitely as powerful, I must say. Just for different reasons, of course. I suppose what appeals to me about Giovanni's Room is that James Baldwin doesn't stoop to cliches. And, well, I guess that makes sense, because there weren't really the cliches that we have now with LGBTQ content. But I find that Giovanni's Room is powerful because it touches on a very universal... It touches on a universal... Its message is more universal. It reminded me a lot of the film Moonlight, which is one of my favorite films of all time. I love that film. The guy who made it, Barry Jenkins, actually made a James Baldwin adaptation, which I do plan on seeing, but I do want to read the book first. I can't think of the name at the moment, but I'm sure someone will tell me on the comment section. But I find that Giovanni's Room, much like Moonlight, it works because it's much more universal. It touches on themes that people of any kind, rather if you're, gay, straight, black, white, whatever, can relate to. Even if, for instance, I am not a gay man, and I definitely could empathize with these characters, even if I didn't always like them. Keep in mind, some of the main characters in this, Baldwin is not afraid to make them into unlikable, and sometimes not always sympathetic figures. One of the things I also enjoy about Giovanni's Room is that Baldwin explores why someone would be homophobic, or why someone might be self-hating as a gay person, and they don't really know how to cope with or I don't want to say their feelings, but their desires. That's a good word for it. And he does it with a lot of grace. He does it with a lot of empathy, and he does it with a lot of compassion. Again, I don't want to spoil this experience, because ultimately I think this is something you should go read. I mean, I think this book is much more interesting than just saying homophobia bad. And I mean, this book is certainly saying that homophobia is bad, but he explores why someone would think that, why someone would believe that, and why someone would say be homophobic. He doesn't condone it necessarily, but he does understand it, and he does get us to understand it as well, which I think is really fascinating. Even if I find that it's personally disgusting, and even some of these characters are, again, not always sympathetic. Now, Giovanni's Room is not entirely about gay men. It's a tragedy about how people not being able to be who they want to be. And it reminds me a lot of Moonlight. It deals with, in fact, I would say that Moonlight and this book actually deal with a lot of similar themes about how people are often trapped by their circumstances and are often not allowed to be who they want to be. Like in Moonlight, we see this with Juan, played by Mahershala Ali. Like, he's a drug dealer, but he really hates being a drug dealer, and he would really rather be anybody else than a drug dealer. But of course, because of the society he lives in, he kind of has to play up the stereotype, right? And this book really goes into that theme, that people aren't really allowed to be who they want to be, and that's really what makes the characters so interesting. The main character, David, is he's not really a nice person. In fact, he's a really bad person a lot of the time. And generally, he's generally not a nice person. He's not someone I would hang out with, to be honest. But you do feel sorry for him, because ultimately this book is about denial, and how ultimately if you deny what you are, if you're not true to yourself, it will ultimately cause you to rot from the inside, and ultimately it will destroy you and destroy people who are around you. I mean, David is not a likable character. In fact, he's pretty awful a lot of the time. But again, you feel pity for him, and you don't want him to make these bad choices, even though he's going to, because, you know, he is self-loathing because of his urges, you say. That sounds bad. His desires, again. I'll just say desires. That sounds bad. That sounds fine, right? But it's a sad story about how denial can ultimately destroy you. And it ultimately does that to David. I won't spoil how, but definitely there is a lot of commentary about how... there's a lot of discussion in this book about being true to yourself, and just how hard that can be when being yourself means that people might blackball you for something that you can't necessarily control. And Baldwin manages to find the humanity in these people who, at the time, people probably would have thought were, you know... I mean, there's still people who do this now who think that, you know, people in the LGBTQ community are just wrong somehow, and I mean, I don't agree with that, but Baldwin was, again, definitely ahead of his time in how he talked about these issues long before LGBTQ activism was even a thing, because it really speaks to the strength of his ability as a storyteller and as a writer, and as a thinker of the time, that he really told a story that was as powerful as this one. And ultimately, I still think it's the best. Now, again, I haven't read a lot of LGBTQ books in my time aside from this. I actually read Razor Blade Tears earlier this month, which I thought was really good. This one is still my favorite because I love the prose, I love the sensuality of it, I love the sensitivity of Baldwin's prose as well as his storytelling and his worldview. And while I don't always necessarily well, let me rephrase that. While I don't always necessarily understand the viewpoint of the LGBTQ community, I can definitely relate to the humanity of these characters, and that is what Baldwin did so well in this. And really, I haven't seen a lot of other people do it. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of great stuff out there, but I just haven't read it yet. And again, if you have recommendations for anyone who is more familiar with it, let me know down there or in the comments. I would love to hear. But yeah, Giovanni's Room, definitely a excellent book, and I thought I should do one video before Pride Month is over, so that's what you're probably gonna get. And my final thoughts on this are really, I enjoy this book. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites of the literary classic American novels, I guess you could say, though. Giovanni's Room is odd because it's not really, it's more of a classic in like the LGBT literature, so I guess it's a classic, but I don't see it a lot in the so-called classics, like something like East of Eden or Grapes of Wrath. That's by the same guy, or The Great Gatsby or whatever. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about Giovanni's Room. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go check out my Twitter, where I have more unfiltered opinions. Go check out my Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. And if you want to go check out my Discord, either message me or I'll send you the link or an invite. So yeah, that's basically all I got for today. Giovanni's Room is an excellent novel. You should go check it out. So, and happy Pride Month, everybody. See you guys later.